Let's practice philosophy. First of all, I'd go about three persons: Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. First of all, Socrates. Socrates was the founder of philosophy, founder of Western philosophy. He was the father of Western philosophy. He was born a long time ago, 2400 plus, 2450 years ago he was born. He did not have any books, he did not have any pens, he did not have any papers, he did not have any teachers, he did not go to school, nothing was there. Even when he learned nothing from anyone, learned nothing from school, learned nothing from private tutor, nothing, still he became the, the father of Western philosophy. What happened in his life? He lived for 71 years. What happened in the 71th year in his life? He was sentenced to death. He had to drink himself the poisonous juice of hemlock leaf. Can you imagine? He was a great saint. He used to motivate people. He used to influence people. He tried his best to make people understand what was right, what was wrong. He tried to make the young generation learn how to learn something. He said, learning comes from thinking. If a teacher talks to him, he will not be that much happy. He will be happy when he understands that the teacher doesn't teach much, he rather makes the students think. So making your students think is more important, much more important according to Socrates. Why? It's because if you make your students think, they will learn a lot, they will become philosopher. So philosophy comes from thinking, observations, pondering over something. So a teacher should teach, but he should much more give emphasis on making students think. And as he tried his best to help people in every way, he was misunderstood thoroughly. His wife misunderstood him thoroughly. He had even 3 sons. We don't know much about Socrates. What we learn about Socrates from the dialogues written by Xenophon and Plato. Plato was the disciple of Socrates. It was not that much kind of thing. It was not a school, nothing like that, but we understand that Socrates had a strong influence on Plato, and Plato had academy. You understand, a coaching center, a language center, a place of learning ideas, philosophy, every other knowledge, right? And later, Aristotle joined the school. He became a student. He was the pupil of the school, and he had been there as a student for 2 years. And rest of the other time, he had been the teacher. And Plato used to like Aristotle very much. He said the total coaching center, total academy was the heart of the academy was Aristotle, and all other things of the academy were the other students. So Aristotle was the most important person, right? And what about Plato? So Plato was the middle. He was neither older than Socrates nor younger than Aristotle. He was in the middle. Aristotle was the student of Socrates. Socrates was also a colleague of Aristotle, because the school, the learning place named Academy, it has been founded and it has been run by Plato. And Aristotle joined there as a student. After 2 years, he became the teacher there. Unfortunately, when Plato died, Aristotle thought that he could be the head of the academy, but unfortunately, he was not given the headship of the academy. And he became very angry, he became very upset. And later he was invited by King Philip II, right? King Philip II. He was asked, right, by King Philip II to teach his son Alexander. Later he became Alexander the Great. So Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander the Great, who was the son of the King Philip II. Hmm? So when Plato died, Aristotle did not like to stay there any longer, because he thought that Plato would make him the head of the institution. But he was not made the head of the institution. He became very upset, and he was waiting to leave the place. And the King Philip II invited him to teach his own son Alexander. So he went there and he started teaching there. And in course of time, Alexander became the best warrior. He became the ruler of most of the places. He was the greatest warrior. He was the greatest ruler. That's why it is called Alexander the Great, right? But as a reward, Aristotle got something. He became the invitation by the king to teach his son. It means that he was the best teacher. It means he could teach the son of the king the best. So it was a reward. It was his credit debited. But here, Socrates could not have anything debited. He had everything in credit. He tried his best to help people, to direct, to supervise, to lead them in the right direction, but nobody listened to them. Everybody became angry. His wife was angry. His children were not that much close to the father, probably. We don't know much about it. All we know about Socrates is that Xenophon and Plato wrote dialogues, and in those dialogues there are a number of times mentions of Socrates. This is how we can guess what happened to Socrates' life. Whatever. So the wife was very angry with Socrates. She did not like philosophy. She was a practical minded person. She did not want her husband to help others. She wanted her husband to run the family smoothly, to take care of her children like this. But as he was a philosopher, as he was a great thinker, he was a great person. That's why he couldn't stay like that. He tried his best to help people all around. He held people, he stopped people, he halted the guys and tell them this is not good, this is to do, why it happens. If someone asks some question, he asks why. If someone answers something, then why, like that. He was always trying to make his students, make his peoples, his neighbors think, so that they can improve their sense, their intelligence, they can improve their IQ, they can broaden their senses. And the other thing, Plato, as I said, probably Plato couldn't understand Socrates that much. Socrates was sentenced to death because uh, he was doing something wrong. He was misleading the new generation. Actually, he was not misleading the new generation. He was trying to lead them in the right direction, but people misunderstood. He was a simple man. Socrates was a short man. He was a fat man. He had a large belly. His eyes were a little bit out, big, and everything makes him ugly. There's another person who was so ugly. He is Dr. Samuel Johnson. If you are still up on us, you'll find one book written by Dr. Samuel Johnson, that is a preface to Shakespeare. In this book, you understand what a great person he was. So Dr. Samuel Johnson was a very ugly person. Nobody knew he was a talented person. So what happened in course of time, he became very poor. He did not have money, he did not have food, nothing. And at one point he talked to his wife and they planned that they could go to London from the village. so that they could try to make a fortune. But they could not help. Nobody understood that he was a genius person. Suppose you have your assignment written by someone, you have your thesis paper written by someone, you have your PhD thesis paper checked by someone. Who is the best person? Dr. Samuel Johnson is the best person, but nobody knew. The same thing has happened to Socrates. Socrates was trying to help people, tried to lead the people in the right direction, but nobody understood. Suppose if you talk to girls and give good knowledge, good teaching, they will misunderstand. They will think that you are trying to do something else, you are trying to seduce them. So there's a problem, and they can somehow misunderstand. The same thing had happened to Socrates. He was misunderstood, and his credit was never debited. You have worked for 1 month with a salary of 1 lakh taka. What will happen? At the end of the month, you will get 1 lakh taka. But what happened to Socrates? He did not get anything, no reward. Suppose you are in an institution, you are doing something in recognition, maybe something there you have done, and that's why you are rewarded. But Socrates was not rewarded anything. So, two persons I know, one is the Vice Chancellor of Culture University, Mr. Sultan, and his wife is a great doctor, and told them, you get so many rewards, you get so many crests, you get so many, um, uh, I mean, winning positions. They go abroad, they are doing the best. But their credits have been debited. But Socrates' credit has never been debited. That's why after the death, later it was understood that because of misunderstanding he was sentenced to death. It was a horrible mistake, and this is why he was made the philosopher, the founding philosopher, the father of Western philosophy. Other than that, Aristotle could have become the father of philosophy. Two things. As Aristotle was young, there was a lot of influence of Socrates' philosophy to Plato, and Plato's philosophy has also, contributed to Aristotle's philosophy, right? And this is the one reason, but the most important reason is he was killed. He was sentenced to death because he did the best thing. They thought that he was anti-religious. Actually, he was not anti-religious. His thinking of religion was different from others. So they thought that he did not believe in God, and it is a crime to the state. It is subversive to the state. That's why he was sentenced to death. There was a voting. Democracy was there. Voting took place, and Socrates could not win. He was defeated, and that's why he was sentenced to death. But there was an opportunity 1 month long. There was a time for 1 month. Probably they thought that Socrates could have fled away. May have Plato may have told him to go away. Some people told him to abscond, to flee away. There was an opportunity. Socrates could have easily gone away to avert the death sentence, but he did not, because he was the most important person in the eyes of law. He said law can be unlawful because the law is blind. Some law can be unlawful, some law can be detrimental to the country, to the person, but it doesn't matter. Law is law. You have to respect law. As he was sentenced to death, he did not go away, he did not flee away. He respected the law and he accepted the death. Even he was little bit smiling, and he took the poisonous juice of hemlock leaf and he drank willingly, and after some hours he died. It does not kill someone so quickly. It is poisonous, it has slow poison, that's why it takes time. It's so horrible. The best person who had been sacrificing all his life for the betterment of the people, but the people instead killed. Even it was not a murder, it was not an assassination, it was willing death. It was the verdict, it was the law, it was the justice that administered the death sentence and executed it. Such a horrible mistake the history tells. And we could have forgotten Socrates, we could not have understood anything about Socrates because he did not write anything. But because of Plato, as he wrote dialogues between Plato and Xenophon, there were a lot of mentions of Socrates, and a lot of things were told in those mentions, in those dialogues, and we understand what kind of person Socrates was. And Socrates' wife was horrible. She was the cruelest woman. What I say is that she was a malignant narcissist. She did not take care of her husband. She rather tried to take control 100% over her husband. Even it is said that in a public place, Socrates' wife hit her. One day, Socrates' wife poured water over Socrates' head, and he smiled and he joked and he said that, "Oh, my head was hot, now my head got cool." This is how Socrates used to minimize the conjugal unhappiness, conjugal dispute, conjugal feud. This is how he technically averted the bad situations. And it is even seen that Socrates' wife hit Socrates in the public place. Such a terrible, unacceptable situation, right? So we don't know much about wife when he was sentenced to death, what was going on between him and his wife, and what was going on among his three sons. We don't know. Probably, as the wife was malignant narcissist, she did not let her children get close in contact with Socrates because she did not want her children, her sons, become similar to Socrates. That is why probably we don't have any idea about the wife of Socrates after his death or towards the sentence, towards the death. We don't know about the sons of Socrates towards the death, towards the execution of the death sentence. We don't have any ideas about them. So Aristotle wrote 400 books. Even it can guess, you can guess there is kind of 1000 books. But what I think, what everybody thinks is that he wrote 400 books. One is on poetry, that is he wrote poetics. He wrote another book, that is medicine. He wrote another book, that is astronomy.